Hey, I'm Robbie Kramer. You're listening to the Leverage Podcast, where we discuss using your social skills to hack dating, travel, finding your dream job, and becoming a complete man. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. Today we've got Jon Anthony from masculinedevelopment.com. And Jon's a beast. I'm super excited to talk to him. I recently did an interview with his partner, Mark Singh. He was on the podcast a few episodes ago. And we'll be talking about some really interesting stuff today, including how to get jacked in time for summer, performance-enhancing drugs, maybe some stuff on crypto. And I'm really curious to hear about your lifestyle and how you run your six-figure business and all about that. So thanks for being on the show. Welcome.
Of course, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So tell us about your story. How'd you kind of get into all this, crazy stuff and all that?
Good question. Yeah. Good question. So I got into like the red pill kind of content, dating and all that stuff when I was, I think, 16, which I'm really thankful for, because that definitely changed. Yeah. There's a lot of guys that we're reaching nowadays that are pretty young. And
because I thought I was young when I was like 23 and when I started getting into the stuff. And
yeah.
But 16, I mean, that's great. Like the younger the
better.
Dude,
it changed my life, man. Because I mean, I was, basically didn't have the best upbringing, which is a very common theme with a lot of us guys in self-improvement, and discovered the red pill. And then when I was about 20 years old, I decided, I don't want to do college. I don't want to do this. I had a horrible experience at a job. There's so much drama, just bullshit. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to drop out, start my own business. And I did it, and I'm here today, 24 years old, self-employed, making six figures, just happy, helping men improve their lives and providing good content. So it's definitely been a journey, man. It's definitely been a journey.
Wow, congrats. That's great. I mean,
thank you.
To do that at your age, I kind of made this my full-time thing right around the age of 25, 26, and it took me until, my ass was on the line. Like I was. Basically the company I was working for folded in 2007. So I had a choice. I could either, try to get another job in finance, which I hated, or make this business work. So it sounds like, you were able to do that at a really young age, and that's great. So
Yeah. I mean, my last job was at Beach Bum Tanning, and I'll never forget, dude. So it was, I was 20 years old, and I'd done some shit online before. I've been trading the stock market since I was 18. But the last straw for me was I had this job at Beach Bum Tanning, and there was, I don't want to stereotype, but I'm sure you can imagine the type of girls that are attracted to a tanning salon. Especially in the town that I live in, there was a lot of sorority girls. So it was just like, if you've ever seen the movie Mean Girl, I think Mean Girls or something.
Yep.
It was like 20 of those, and I was the only guy there. So there was just constant drama, and I ended up quitting after 2 weeks, and I was just like, I'm never doing this again. And ever since then, dude, I just self-employed, and I'm fucking loving it. So
I'm curious, how did you get into, so obviously you started with personal growth, and then how did you transition to the business side and learn marketing and sales and all that stuff?
That's a good question. So I mean, I started my blog, and I was just, when I started it in, I think 2016. And so let me back up. I had multiple business ventures before then, right? But the blog was the one that really took off. The blog and trading, I think, were two that really, really like helped me a lot, made me a lot of money, and took off. And so I started my blog, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to provide free content, lots of cool stuff. And I did. But I noticed that if you're not marketing, it doesn't matter how good your stuff is, because no one's going to see it, right?
Right.
So I eventually started turning it into less of a personal sort of just me and my thoughts blog, and more of a, how can I get guys to, read this and love it and get engaged and want to take the next step and, sign up for some of my more premium courses. And, I've just been doing that for several years.
Did you study copywriting, or how'd you learn all that?
Yeah, dude, I studied everything, man. Marketing, copywriting, SEO, all kinds of stuff. But my buddy Mark Singh, the one who you interviewed recently, he does all the copywriting. So I'm super, super happy to have him on board, because my thoughts are just, if you want to have a general proficiency in everything you do, but get really good at like one or two things and then just pay other people to do the rest because it takes too long to learn to do every single skill.
Yeah, I agree. That's really good advice because, yeah, and if you can partner with someone who's a great copywriter, that's a huge benefit to your business, of course. So
yeah.
So he does the copy, and what's your role? You provide more of the content?
Oh yeah, dude. I write YouTube. I make YouTube videos. I write. So yeah. I mean, I write all about dating, health and fitness. So my thing is I like to separate life into four areas, right? There's health, wealth, love, and happiness. I actually stole that from Tai Lopez. I'm sure he stole it from some book because he's all about the knowledge,
About the knowledge, bro.
The knowledge. And so my aim is to basically get good at all four and help other guys get good at all four. Because it's not that impressive nowadays to be good at one because there's a lot of guys that have a lot of money, but they're just like out of shape, not happy, don't have their dating lives in order. And there's a lot of guys that are, total degenerates and they just deal coke and club all the time. So they've got their dating lives good,
Right.
but their money situation and health situation is shit. So my goal is to get basically everything in the same under the same umbrella and work on all of them. And that's why I wanted to talk about performance enhancing drugs today, actually, because Rob, do you go by Rob or Robbie?
Robbie.
Robbie and I were talking before this, and we were thinking about, let's talk about how to get jacked for summer, right? And I think that's great. That's awesome. But I think that performance enhancing drugs also expand to other things like modafinil for cognition and business performance focus, right? So there's a wide range of tools I think that you can use that you can leverage to master every area of your life.
Yeah. I'm curious because I've dabbled in a few things. I had some experts on the show back in the day who were big fans of testosterone replacement therapy. I'm also kind of doing a intermittent fasting diet right now, which I've seen some pretty good gains from. But tell us about your experience in that.
So I love that you're doing IF. What's your schedule for IF?
So I'm doing it's called the Blowtorch Diet by what's his name? I had him on the show. I'll pull it up here because I just finished reading his book. It is Jay Campbell. Have you heard of him? From
Rings a bell.
trtrevolution.com, I think he's from.
Okay.
It's a metabolic blowtorch diet. And essentially the protocol is you fast every other day and you try to go for at least 16 hours. If you can go longer, great. And then in the morning and at night, you take metformin.
Yeah.
Which I just started
it's a diabetes drug. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. I'm not exactly sure what it does, but it's a big component to it.
Yeah.
And you're basically intermittent fasting 4 out of the 7 days a week. And your meals are the nice thing about it is you don't have to be super strict. Like you don't have to follow keto or anything like that. Because
that's good if you're clubbing a lot too, because it's hard to go out a lot of the time and like maintain your diet.
Totally. I mean, I've done the keto diet. I lost almost 60 pounds back in 2000.
Holy shit!
Fuck, what year was that? 2012. So I've tried everything out there, and my weight's been, I was fat as fuck for a long time in my late 20s. I was all the way up to 215 pounds, and now I'm like right around 175, which is I feel like pretty healthy for me. But I wanted to kill like a little bit of body fat and try to get a six pack by summer. And so I've been trying this been on it for almost 2 weeks, and I've seen some pretty good results and I'd never done intermittent fasting before. And I find it to be a lot easier than keto or something like that, because you can.
Oh yeah.
I'm just looking at my app, and it's like, all right, you have 2 more hours until you can eat. Fuck it, drink some coffee and drink some water and do something else. Go work. Yeah.
There was a study done. I do IF every day, so there was a study done. They had lab rats, right, and they fed them the exact same amount of food. They had the exact same amount of exercise. And all they did was they just had one group that did IF and one group that didn't do IF in the lab rats. And they found that even under the exact same diet, sleep schedule, the exact food, exercise, everything. The ones that did IF, I think they gained like 35% more muscle mass. They lost like 50% more fat in like a 3-month period. So IF is really good for your hormones. Yeah. Have you ever done SARMs, or you said you experienced or you experimented with TRT, right?
Yeah. That was I should have been more rigorous with my protocol. I had a buddy who basically got me a bunch of free stuff, not free stuff, but illegal stuff, without a prescription. It definitely wasn't free. I think I was paying like $1,200 a month for everything.
Oh God.
I started, I don't know, what do you call it? Juicing, right? So I started.
I guess so. Yeah. Juicing, sticking those syringes in there.
Yep. I did that at the beginning of end of 2017, beginning of 2018. And I put on a lot of muscle really fast. But my diet was pretty haphazard, and I was partying and traveling and going on trips and stuff like that. So it definitely, like, I saw the huge gain in muscle. I didn't lose much fat because my diet was probably shit. But eventually I moved to Europe, and I was just like too busy to figure out how to get it over here. And I went off it for a while, and I was a little bit nervous after going off it that it might fuck with my hormones. But nothing bad came of it, and I'm in better shape today than I was then. So
wow. Yeah, I did so I've done a lot of things, right? So my thing is you've heard the term biohacking, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I followed Dave Asprey's stuff back in the day. Oh, dude.
Mm-hmm. Dave Asprey is the man, He's the one who I heard about modafinil from, actually. And all that different stuff. So I've done cycles of steroids. I've done SARMs, which is selective androgen receptor modulators. I've done like a lot of stuff, modafinil, Adderall, cocaine, LSD, all the different shit that you can use to biohack. And have you ever done SARMs out of curiosity? Because I just got done with the cycle.
No, what is it? I've never heard of it either.
Really? So that's one thing that I think is super under-tapped right now that a lot of guys don't know about. So to put it really briefly, SARMs, the best way to describe it is they're basically legal steroids, and they have about 90% of the effects of steroids, but only about 1 to 5% of the side effects. So there's a lot of different ones too. There's Osterin, Carterin, Ligandrol, Rad140.
Do you inject it?
No, so that's the great part too. Because when I did steroids, I remember the first time that I injected, I didn't know how, so I got like the wrong pin size, and I was still in college at the time, so I was like, it took me 40 minutes. I missed my class. I was like, fuck, this is so stupid. This hurts so much. So
I have a real quick funny story about that. Yeah. I didn't know you had to get the air out of the syringe.
Yeah. Oh, dude, that's bad.
It's really dangerous.
Dude, did you get an air bubble?
I didn't, but I had this insane pain like after. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? It wasn't really a sharp pain, but it was like a dead leg for like 2 days. And when I asked my buddy, like, why is this happening? He's like, oh, did you get the air out of it? I'm like, no, you never told me to do that. He's like, oh yeah.
Wait, did you inject in the glute side, or what did you?
Yeah, in the
legs,
glute side.
Glutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did. So I used to alternate between glutes, hamstrings, shoulders, and honestly, dude, like, there's no way to do an injection that feels good. Like, I tried warming it up. I tried massaging myself. Like, everything. It's gonna fucking hurt.
Yeah. The pain from the needle wasn't really that bad. Like, that was okay.
Pain, yeah.
It was and it was only that one time, because I did it wrong. But But yeah, I mean, from what I read, you can die from something like that. So,
dude, yeah. How much were you doing? Like, how many mgs a week?
I don't know. What's the standard?
Well, for TRT, it's probably like maybe like 30 to 50. Not that much.
Yeah, I think he had me on a pretty low dose to start with.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, because when I did roids, it was like 200 a week, so it was like a shit ton, and yeah, dude, that's why I like SARMs. So my thing is, like, don't ever get on roids or like anything like that unless you're going to benefit from it financially. So if it's like career-wise, if you're a fitness model, whatever it is, then great. But otherwise, don't do it. But
that's good
the
advice.
Thing I like about definitely. The thing I like about SARMs is So SARMs stands for selective androgen receptor modulators. And the way that steroids work, there's a lot of different steroids, right? Dianabol, testosterone, enanthate, trenbolone, acetate, etc. The way that steroids work, so there's something in your body called an androgen receptor. And steroids bind to these receptors and basically tell your body to build muscle, right? And that's why steroids get you such great results. But the thing is, there's also androgen receptors in your body that you probably don't want the steroids to bind to. So like there's androgen receptors in your organ tissue, which is why when guys get on steroids, they have heart problems sometimes if it's for a long period of time, issues with like different organs. And in addition to that, roids fuck with your hormones a lot too, because you're literally injecting straight testosterone into your system. So there's going to be a lot of suppression, testicular shrinkage, all that different stuff, gynecomastia, bitch tits. The thing I like about SARMs is they selectively, like the name implies, they selectively target specific androgen receptors. So they'll target androgen receptors in your muscles, which triggers them to grow, but they don't target the androgen receptors in, like your heart or, different organs. So basically you can get a lot of the benefits of roids with very few benefits of, a lot of the benefits of roids with very few side effects. I think that's like super undertapped right now. I mean,
yeah, it sounds a lot better to me. I mean,
yeah. I mean,
how well known is this stuff? Because I've never heard of it, and from yeah,
they're not. It's not very well known. I mean, they just started creating them in the 1990s, right? So, steroids have been around, for decades, since like the 1920s, right? Athletes were using roids in, before like World War II to compete in the Olympics because no one knew about them. There's no testing. But SARMs didn't really, in their modern form, they didn't start being produced and, experimented with until really like the mid to late 90s. And a lot of guys just aren't aware of them, But so if you want to see the results, by the way, guys, if you go to Google and just search SARMs before and after, my website is the first article that comes up. And so I documented my first cycle there. And it's basically, I mean, it's incredible. Like I put on, I think like, 15, 20 pounds of muscle. I lost like 7 or 8 pounds of fat in the span of a few months, which might not sound like a lot, but
no, that's great.
When
that's
you really,
huge.
when you look at it, it's like a big difference. So
and
I think it's really undertapped.
What was your diet and exercise regime like? Obviously intermittent fasting.
Yeah. So I was doing IF. I was eating around 3,000 calories a day. Lots of protein, obviously. I worked out probably 3 to 4 days a week. I use I have my own workout routine, Body of an Alpha. So I use that. But sometimes I'll alternate it depending on like the cycle and things like that. So, but that's I think it's a huge undertapped potential. And in fact, you can get shredded. Like if you guys are trying to get shredded for summer, definitely look into SARMs because you can run a cycle for 400 to 500 a month and basically get really jacked. Get super shredded, and you get like I said, you get a lot of the benefits of steroids with very few side effects. So.
And this took you a couple of months?
Yeah, I mean, you typically do it in 8 to 12 week cycles, and so there's something called the anabolic ratio, and this is basically the ratio of how anabolic, to put it in like layman's terms, how much muscle you'll build compared to the side effects, right? And so, for example, testosterone is 100 to 100. So that means the side effects compared to the muscle building is about equal. A steroid like trenbolone is 500 to 500. So you get a whole bunch of muscle, but you have a shit ton of side effects, right? A SARM like testolone, for example, RAD 140, is 90 to 1. So that means it's 90% as effective as pure testosterone with only 1% of the aromatization or the side effects, basically. So I just got off a cycle of RAD 140, and I was really impressed. I took some pictures. I'm going to post them. I cannot emphasize, like, I think this is super undertapped for guys. Like, everyone nowadays, they're trying to get jacked, especially in the States. There's a lot of competition,
Yeah.
And it's crazy, man. Like you get jacked and you put some pictures up on Tinder. It's like fucking pussy heaven. You can get thousands of girls fucking swiping right on you. Like it's insane. So
definitely makes a difference, especially on online dating sites, because that's all they're seeing. They're literally just flipping through for how hot you are. And
Basically, yeah.
yeah, if you want to be competitive on those sites, you got to look good. That's for sure.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
so you said it's like four to $500 a month, and how do people get it?
So it's 400 to $500 for a cycle. So
For a
that's
cycle?
about
Okay.
3 months.
So
Yeah, yeah.
cheaper.
So it probably
Okay.
works out to 150 a month. And I have a discount code you guys can use too if you want to plug that in the description or something.
Yeah, I'll put a link below the
Yeah,
show
yeah,
on the site. Yeah.
yeah, cool. So yeah, what was the question you asked? Sorry, I forgot. I blanked out.
Um, no, where you
400.
can. I asked where they can get it. They can get it through you.
No, so well, okay, so good question. So I don't sell.
Okay.
So I've been in the supplement industry for a long time. I had a job selling supplements under an IFBB Pro when I was like 19 or 20. And so there's a lot of bullshit in this industry.
Sure.
I get mine from Proven Peptides personally. And the great thing about SARMs too is like a lot of performance enhancing drugs aren't technically legal. So like modafinil, for example, you have to go to like overseas pharmacies, get it from India, all that stuff. But SARMs are perfectly legal, right? They're technically sold as research chemicals, so you're technically not supposed to put them in your body,
Yeah.
which technically I can't endorse.
Right.
But it's perfectly legal to buy them and to basically have them on your person. So I get mine from Proven Peptides, and I've had really good experiences there. A lot of guys, in the supplement industry online, they'll sell you like they'll say that they're SARMs, but they're actually pro hormones, which are way fucking worse for you, not as effective. I jumped on a cycle from where the hell was it? Primeval Labs, which is another company that sells supplements, and I do not recommend them at all. I within the first day, I was having the most emotional mood swings up and down. Like my hormones were fucked. I stayed on it for about a week, and I was like, I can't do this. I'm just getting off. So,
Yeah.
Proven Peptides is my go-to.
Okay. Very cool. Thanks
Yeah.
for sharing that with us. So tell me more about your intermittent fasting routine. You do it every day, and for how long?
Yeah, so I hit the gym on an empty stomach. I've done that for years now. I take a pre-workout first thing in the morning because it hits you really hard when you're working out with an empty stomach. I don't think too much about it. So a lot of guys are very rigid with their hours, like 14 hours, 16 hours, 18 hours. I basically just I don't eat for like the first 4 to 8 hours usually that I wake up, which is great because I can get work done.
Yeah.
And I just eat. Generally, when I start to feel like a big dip in energy and focus, I'll start to eat. But until then, I just hit the gym or lift. So you said you were doing the 8-16 thing, right? That's like a very common one.
Yeah, well, it's because I'm doing it every other day. He recommends to go as long as you can, and so I've been, I went 21 hours when I did it yesterday, and I felt okay. I felt fine. Actually, I did a Muay Thai training class with I have a personal trainer for Muay Thai, and I had more energy than I've ever had in a training session. He's like, dude, you're hitting way harder today. What's going on? I'm like, well, I haven't had food in over 19 hours. So
yeah. You get really sharp. Like there's something in your body where like when you don't have food for a long period of time, your body's just like, okay, we need food. Let's up the, growth hormone production. Let's get this motherfucker sharp and on point so you can find some food. So I've done like day fasts before and stuff like that. And that stuff's really good for like cleaning out metabolic waste in your body. I think they did a study and it was like if you fast for 24 to 48 hours, your growth hormone increases by like between 700 and 1200%, which is fucking crazy.
That's what I was reading in this book, and they were talking about all these studies, and you get sharper, and all the basically like the effects of intermittent fasting, which aren't just diet, it's totally mental, which I realized. So
yeah,
and I mean I'm a total beginner on this stuff, so it's great hearing from an expert like you. But you with the modafinil and with all this other stuff, it sounds like you're biohacking, as good as someone could do.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, dude, I just so Mark and I did a podcast recently on, he's very like he's a purist, right? He doesn't like to do alcohol, drugs, etc.
Yeah.
And I'm like the opposite, right? And so we did a very cool podcast contrasting our views. And my thing is like, if you can, any drug, right? Whatever, like caffeine, energy drinks, nicotine, speaking of which, I have my fucking e-cig right here. modafinil, SARMs, whatever, testosterone, any drug is a tool. So if you can leverage it to gain all of the positives and deleverage it to minimize the side effects, then I think it's great and you can get a lot of shit done. When I had a course that I launched a while ago in early 2018, and I was recording videos for this thing. Like I wanted to get it out. And so for about like, a 3-week period, I was just like binging on Adderall and modafinil, all that different shit. And I don't think it's a good long-term lifestyle. Sure. But if you can do that and then get a course out that makes you thousands of dollars each month, or if you can like focus on a project and like nail it, then I think it's a tool, like it's a great tool.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much stuff out there. Just the general narrative, the consensus about drug use, and it's the war on drugs, and just growing up in the U.S., they really demonize drugs, and they tell everyone that they're addicts, and everyone's going to end up in a
yeah. Have you ever seen Reefer Madness? That old one?
I have. Yeah.
Dude smokes like one hit of weed and starts killing people and like fucking shit.
Crazy, right?
Okay, yeah.
And I was listening to something the other day. It was a TED Talk, I believe, on they decriminalized drugs in Portugal and the impact that had on society. Did you hear about this?
I think I've watched like a few minutes of it. Yeah.
They had like the most like crack and heroin addicts of any country in Europe, and they were doing basically what the U.S. was doing, trying to fight the war on drugs, and it was just making the problem worse and worse. So they brought in a bunch of experts and did a study, and they said, you know what, we're just going to decriminalize everything, let people do it if they want. And the percentage of drug addicts like dropped tremendously. Basically everything they wanted to have happened. So it's so crazy to me that all this shit still goes on, and there's so much misinformation out there when it comes to drug use. So
yeah. I mean, it's insane, dude. Like, I mean, I think that using, weed or shrooms or acid or whatever, like my thing is you want to have a healthy base, right? So like you want to meditate, work out, all that different shit. But if you can use those things to reach a higher state of consciousness or to gain clarity in your life that you couldn't gain before, then I mean, why wouldn't you do it? Like if I can use SARMs to like get really jacked, for a photo shoot or for the summer, which by the way, guys, like if we can totally talk about the whole looks versus game dilemma, the debate that people have, do looks matter more? Does game matter more? Inner game versus outer game, all this different stuff. But what I say is like, why not get all of it? Like if you're jacked and you're confident and you have game, the technical aspects, you have inner confidence, inner game, like why would you not do everything?
Why would you not optimize? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
it's
when
crazy
I go
not
to the pool here, dude, I'm in a college town, so there's a lot of girls here, a lot of young girls. And it's actually funny because I dropped out of this college, but I'm still in town. And we've got about, I think it's like a 70% girls to 30% guys ratio. So it's like crazy.
It's insane. Which college? Where are you?
James Madison in Harrisonburg.
That's what, South Carolina? Where is that? Pennsylvania?
Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm here in geography. Like, dude, it's insane because like I literally I'm jacked. I go to the grill, go to like a pool nearby, grill some burgers with my friends. And you can just open girls. Like they're mad if you don't open them because there's like, oh, there's these cool guys that are jacked that are like having fun. Why isn't he talking to us? So it's like if you just get everything, man, money, looks, game, inner confidence, just meditate, like do all these good things. Like why would you not do that? You can have everything.
Yeah, you make it sound so easy. Like
that's true. Just do these things, guys. Like just make $1 million.
What the fuck, guys? Get it.
Yeah, that's very true.
Easier said than done, but let me ask you. So, when going through your process, what was the biggest challenge you had to overcome to get all this stuff in order?
It's a good question. I think the very first thing was just believing it's possible. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't think it's possible, then you're not going to take action to do those things, and you're not gonna, there's no way you can do it. I've had different challenges in different areas. So I think with health, I've been very healthy since I was probably a kid. When I was really into like video games and stuff like that when I was young. But about the time that I turned 16, I kind of got fed up and I was like, I'm just going to get jacked. So I've been working out since I was 16 very regularly. With women, I think the biggest obstacle I faced was just getting over my own negative conditioning, my own, repressed emotions, fear of rejection, all that different stuff. There's so many things, man, but it all comes to inner game, like obviously you're very aware of, And so I think that if you just focus on the inner game and still take action, right? Don't have this false dichotomy of outer versus inner. Do both, but if you just focus on the inner growth, then everything else comes naturally. What about you? What's your experience?
Well, I struggled a lot with my weight, and I basically did everything before addressing that. So I worked on my game, my inner game, essentially like built myself, built a business, became successful, and did really well with women kind of being a bit chubby. I wasn't huge, but, when I lost the weight, it was just a total game changer. And, I was getting tons of girls before that, but the quality of women really increased and just the ease of it. Right? Like I could do it before, I could spit a bunch of game, I could talk myself in there, blah, 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 blah. She'd eventually end up liking me, but I couldn't use Tinder. I couldn't use online dating sites very effectively. Luckily, they weren't super popular back then. This was like, almost 8 years ago. But after losing the weight, it was a total game changer because, like you said, I had all of these things in place. Like I was a very well-rounded, good package. And, so what girl wouldn't want to, check me out? And that's the thing. You have to. There's so much competition out there, and there's young guys like you who are just like on the fucking ball, right? And you have to be competitive. It's a competitive market, so you have to do all these things. And if you've got shit holding you back or these beliefs, like I fell victim to a lot of the old shitty PUA advice, which was like, you can
don't
be
get me
fat.
Started on that, dude.
Yeah, you can be fat. You can get girls. Look at this guy, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, yeah, sure. I don't need to lose the weight. And eventually I hit a wall and I was like, all right, let's, because I believe that if you work on the thing that you need to work on the most, you'll have the biggest gain from that. Like when you wake up in the morning, do the thing you want to do the least first. Like whatever's on your checklist of bullshit work you have to do, like do the shittiest thing first. And
that is great advice, dude. Like I like to use that model, like the health, wealth, love, and happiness. Because my thing is like, whichever thing you're lagging behind in the most, if you just work on that a little bit, everything else will get better. So like for some guys, like you said, it's like the whole like, oh, you can be fat and pick up girls, which like technically is true. Yeah. It's like, yes, okay, there's like pickup artists, guys, that I'm not going to name names, but that have like a lot of hot girls around them, all that shit. And it's true that, if you hyper compensate by having money and game and a good lifestyle, then it'll work. But like, why not just put in, a little bit of effort and get in good shape? And then it's like so much easier. So, that whole looks versus game thing, I get shit sometimes because like I always say that like girls don't care about looks, which technically isn't true. I think that the full phrase is basically girls don't care about looks if your game is in like the top 0.01%. Because if you can make a girl laugh so hard that she cries, all she knows is I feel good around this guy. I like this guy. But, the truth is like, why would you not just like do both? Like I think of game as like your marketing, right? And so having good looks will get you a higher level of initial attraction that makes everything so much fucking easier, And I mean, like, it's just like guys always have this thing where it's like, well, why should I do this if like there's this other one guy who can like do it without losing weight or whatever? But just leverage everything, And what's crazy is like
approach to think
it
like
is.
That.
It
I
is.
know,
And
trust
like,
me.
dude, what's crazy is like, so in some ways there is more competition nowadays, right? Because like, like we were talking about like Tinder, right? It's like, there's young guys that have their shit together, but maybe it's different in Ukraine and in parts of Europe, but like, I think that in the States, there's actually like very little competition. Like once you start actually getting your shit together, there's so little competition that it's so easy to slay.
Oh, like, it's lonely at the top. It's
dude, dude, it is.
It is. Yeah. And Ukraine is interesting because the competition is so low here. And there's way more women than men. And there's way more women in shape than in the U.S.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
it's paradise when it comes to that. You know, people ask me why did I come to Ukraine. I always say, oh, for the borscht, and they don't believe me.
The borscht? What does that mean?
That's the national soup. So
Oh.
yeah. It's just like a ridiculous thing to say
Borscht.
because every guy
want
comes
to-
here for the pussy. Every
Yeah.
single guy. If he tells you
Yeah.
otherwise, he's probably lying, right? Unless
Probably.
because there's no reason to come here unless, yeah,
Yeah.
If you're a
And
Westerner,
I mean, like, it's funny because like the more that I go on this journey, like you said, like the less competition there is, you know, like it's so crazy, the mindset. And I feel like 99% of what I do is I just like try to get guys to change their mindset because, you know, here it's like, for example, I have this one friend of mine, right? And he knows that I you know, make six figures online. I'm like really good at everything. And I'll always like, we'll be talking and he's like, oh, you know, maybe I should start a podcast, right? Because he has this shitty job that he hates.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, like I will help you. I'm like, yes, you want to take action, I'll help you. And then he just never does it, you know, or it's like his girlfriend, he told me that she only fucks him like once every 2 months. And I'm like, oh, like, dude, like, you know, let me help you. Like I literally, you know, help guys get better with girls for a fucking living.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, you know, yeah, you know, whatever. And it never happens, right? So like so many guys, they're operating at this low level where they literally like they don't even put in any effort. Like
that's like
people think
95% of guys too.
it is.
Yeah.
Like they think they're taking action by like reading a blog. But it's like, no, motherfucker, like read the blog, get the information, and then go out into the real world and apply it. That's taking action. So if you can just take like a small amount of action, you can kill it, dude. It's insane. I mean, in 3 years, in the last 3 years, so I was a virgin until I was, I think like 21, right? And I was like a good looking kid. I was, you know, had muscles, but I didn't have any game, no confidence. I was insecure, you know, emotionally needy. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, so I never got laid. But, you know, in the last 3 years, since I was 21, right, I've slept with like over 150 girls, started making six figures online. I made 10K in a day at one point, you know, like just the level of fucking slaying it that you can do. I've like gotten jacked, happier, like everything's just getting better.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you just learn those underlying principles of growth, of, you know, inner confidence, of just changing your life, everything just transforms and there's no fucking competition.
It's interesting how how little competition there is. I'm sure for a lot of guys listening, they might be like, yeah, well, cool for you guys to say,
Yeah,
you know,
good
you
for
guys,
you guys.
you guys are
Yeah,
crushing it. But the thing I want to bring up, which is I'm guessing for you to make that transition, you probably had to change a lot of your habits.
Yeah.
Because that's what I've noticed big time in all my clients who get success in my own journey. It's getting rid of habits that just don't serve you and creating good habits that do. So what were those habits for you?
Lifting weights, meditating, journaling, and reading. And I think that journaling is key. So
Yeah, most people don't bring
keep
that up, so explain
journaling.
that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's always read, meditate, lift weights, like that stuff, get up earlier, which is great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But my thing is self-awareness is always the biggest leverage point because if you're not self-aware, right? Like to everyone listening right now, really take a moment to ask yourself, how have I taken action in the last week? Like, what have I done to improve my life? Because a lot of the time, you know, and this was me several years ago, right? A few years ago, it was like, oh yeah, I'm reading these articles, I'm listening to this podcast, I'm taking action, right? And it, you know, that's great, right? Listen, you know, I have a blog with over 250 articles on it, a YouTube channel, like you've got a podcast, that's great. Listen to that shit and absorb it, but apply what you're doing. And that's why I think that journaling is so key because that helps you develop self-awareness, you know? Like so every day, I you know, keep track of the things that I get done, right? I journal, right? So, you know, when I go back and look at my journal for the past 6 months and I did say that, you know, so here's an example, right? Say that I set a goal to accomplish in 6 months, right? Cool. You know, every day I'll journal my thoughts, just kind of what I'm doing, just anything on my mind. If I don't hit that goal by the time that I reach that 6-month mark, I can then go back and see, okay, you know, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm focusing on. There's a lot of negative thoughts in my journal that I was struggling with. Maybe I should deal with that. You know, I'm looking at my checklist of things that I did in the past 6 months. Maybe I didn't take enough action. Maybe this thing right here that I was focusing on for 2 weeks wasn't important and I should have just ignored it, right? When you journal, that's the gateway to self-awareness. And so I just think that's so fucking critical, you know?
Yeah.
So that's my process.
I'm glad you brought that up because I've certainly journaled quite a bit, and it's something you're inspiring me to do it more consistently and regularly. But usually I'll do it when I'm feeling down or I'm going through a rut, and then I'll start journaling every day. And then sure enough, like, you know, things turn around, so I'm just like, whatever, don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So I'll stop. But then I'll be on a plane, you know, no Wi-Fi, nothing to do. I'll look back through my notes on my phone, and I'll read my journals, and I'll be like, whoa, I was in such a different headspace just 3 months ago, 4 months ago, 6 months ago. And it's amazing because we don't remember how we felt, you know, most of the time, right? We just kind of the day-to-day stuff, the stuff that has a huge emotional impact on us, but just the whatever level that you're vibrating on, like emotionally and spiritually, when you go back and you read a journal, like it's pretty fucking obvious because you have your intimate personal stuff in there. And I got so much both like joy of reading that and realizing how far I'd come, and just awareness, like you said. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up because that's huge.
I'm super glad that I brought this up and that we expanded upon it, because I mean, one thing that I like to do too. So I have a daily journal, right? It's just a Word document on my computer. I just write, you know, my thoughts, my feelings, kind of clarify things, right? So that's one benefit, is it helps you clarify your thoughts, right?
Yeah.
But what I'll do is every 2 or 3 months, I go back through my daily journal in my Word document, and I'll highlight the most important lessons and principles that I learned in those 4 areas that I mentioned: health, wealth, love, and happiness. And that allows me to sort of get a bird's eye view of my life, right? So for example, you know, if I tried, you know, SARMs, or, you know, tried, I don't know, waking up at a different hour every day for the last 3 or 4 months, you know, I'll look at the results, and then I can compare that to the journaling that I did the 6 months before that. And I can take notes and say, okay, when I wake up at this hour, I'm more productive, but my social life suffers because I don't go out as much. When I do this, then it leads to this result, right? So I just think that nailing down that self-awareness is so fucking critical, because most guys, you know, to quote Henry David Thoreau, they live quiet lives. They live lives of quiet desperation. And they just, anytime they feel that discomfort, they stuff it down, right? You know, maybe they have a thought, right? Maybe I should leave my job, stuff it down. Maybe I should do this, stuff it down. But when you journal and you're just brutally honest with your successes, your failures, the lessons you've learned, there's no way to ignore it. So I think that
you can't bury it, really.
Getting that self-awareness is the first step towards any change.
Yeah. And the other great thing is just, as you mentioned, just getting the thoughts out of your head and organizing them, because we're all walking around, you know, like our brain it's just an organ that produces, you know, it basically stops us from getting killed. Right. And we think we are our thoughts. Like, oh, I just had this crazy thought. It must have been me. It's like, no, you literally thoughts just pop in your head. And they've done studies on this to prove that the thoughts aren't you. You're literally just having them. Right. And so we might get bogged down by our thoughts, or think there's this crazy bad shit going on, blah, blah, blah. How could I think that? You know, what kind of asshole am I? Right. But as you write them down, you realize the absurdity of your thoughts. And it really, at least for me, creates a lot of clarity and allows me to get out of like these murky headspaces that it's easy to get in. Also, meditation is something I picked up about a year ago, which has radically changed my life. So
I meditate every day. It's super important.
Yeah, same here. I try to do. I've been pushing myself to do longer, you know, hour long, 40 minutes, blah blah blah. But I try to at least do 10 or 20 minutes. If I don't do at least a 10-minute meditation, I notice it. Like, you know, I do too. Yeah.
So another thing, here's my my morning routine basically. So it's changed over the years. And my thing is, if you're listening to this and you've never meditated, or you don't meditate regularly, you don't work out, and you don't read, start immediately. Do that for 6 months and journal and see how your life changes. But after a certain point, I think it's okay to start changing things and tweaking them to serve you. So I used to meditate, you know, 20 minutes every. I had this long, elaborate morning routine. It's actually the first article I ever posted on my blog, and it took like an hour to an hour and a half, right? And that's great. That's great to get some initial momentum.
Yeah.
But now what I do, because I like to just get up, do some quick high ROI things, which I think is a very critical concept to understand, and then just get going. So what I do is I I got this process for writing down my tasks and goals and dreams every day from this really successful lawyer that I actually don't know, but I heard of him through someone else. And every day I'll write down. So first off, I use a gratitude journal. I don't know if you guys can see this if we're recording for the podcast or not, but for the video, but I use a gratitude journal, write down 3 things that I'm thankful for every day, 3 things I want to accomplish, do some affirmations. That takes 2 minutes. Then I write down.
And that's the first thing you do after waking up.
Very first thing. Yeah.
Okay. No checking your phone, no Instagram.
No,
good.
No. Don't
That's
don't
the
check
worst
your
thing
phone
you
for
could
the first
fucking do.
3 hours of the day.
Oh my
because
God.
when you check your phone, it puts you into a reactive state, right? And it's tempting, right? Because you want to go on Twitter and see how many new followers you got. You want to go on YouTube and see your subscribers,
see your messages on
Instagram,
WhatsApp,
the likes.
everything. Yeah.
Exactly. Check your Snapchat. But that gets you into a reactive state first thing in the morning. So dopamine, super critical neurotransmitter. I like how this is flowing, by the way.
Yeah,
so much better than when I first started off. I was like, yeah. So, dopamine, critical neurotransmitter. When you check your phone for the first, in the first, 10 minutes of the day, you set a certain mindset in motion for the rest of the day where you basically get a hit of dopamine first thing by checking your likes, your Facebook, whatever. That makes you want more dopamine. So I don't check my phone for the first 3 hours of the day at all. So what I do is I do the gratitude journal, and then I write down 3 critical tasks I want to accomplish every day. Then I go to I do it on a legal pad, a yellow pad. Next page, 3 or more goals that I want to accomplish in the next month to 6 months to keep me constantly aware of my goals. Then I write down a list of dreams, right? Things that I don't really have a plan to do at some point, but that I want to, right? Something, I don't know, like one of them might be, meeting a certain celebrity or someone that I look up to, or, networking with someone, or having a certain car, a certain house in a location, whatever. And then I take notes, right? So I write down a notes section where I can write notes every day. After that, I meditate for, 10 minutes usually. And then this is the key, I visualize. I visualize what I want my life to look like in a year, in 2 years, and 3 years, because when you visualize and you really feel the emotions as you're visualizing your ideal life, it ingrains it into your subconscious and it changes that circuitry in your brain, right? So they've done studies and they've had athletes where they compare 2 groups of athletes. One group, they'll practice for 30 minutes a day for free throws, right? Another doesn't practice at all, and they just visualize themselves making the free throws. And what they found is the group that visualizes themselves making the free throws actually performs better in the games. And so what that shows us is that when you visualize something, you literally set the circuitry to be created in your brain. You set that process in motion so that you're literally turning that thought into a reality.
Yeah, man, I can attest to this personally because I played high-level collegiate golf. Thought about going pro, but visualization in golf is fucking everything because you're literally looking down the fairway, you're looking to the green, you got a tree in front of you. Yeah. All of the times where I noticed this, I kind of found out on my own. Because anytime I'd get in trouble, I'd be behind a tree, I'd had to hook it around or slice it around a tree, I would pull these miraculous shots off. I'm like, what am I doing differently? And I was focusing, I was visualizing the shot. It was easier to visualize it because there's an object to go around or something to hit through. And I started doing that on all my shots, and my game improved drastically. And then someone was like, oh, yeah, you're visualizing. You're supposed to do that. This should be part of your pre-shot routine. I was like, oh, well, I'm glad I fucking figured this out now. It would have been nice to know a few years earlier, but it's everything. So,
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you start – so, they've done studies, and they did another study too where they had someone – visualize doing bicep curls, right? Lifting weights. And they found that there was actually a noticeable increase in muscle mass just from imagining yourself lifting weights, right? So what does that tell us? It tells us that when you visualize something, there's a physiological, biological change in your body so your mind doesn't know the difference between reality and visualizations, or at least your subconscious mind and your body. It doesn't know the difference, right? That's why when you think of something bad happening, you get fucking nervous, right? You feel tightness in your chest, but your body doesn't know the difference. So you can literally prime your mind every day for success if you just visualize.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. And how does that tie into affirmations? Because my experience with affirmations has been not nearly as impactful For a while, I was kind of like just totally against them. And it was like, well, I'm saying this thing and I don't feel it, so it's fucking bullshit. So I had this contradiction in my mind. Can you speak to that at all?
Totally. So I actually I feel the same way, right? So I used to do, like 100 affirmations a day or whatever, like these different things. And what I found is that it should never feel like a task, right? If it feels like a task, which I think affirmations, that it kind of tends to feel like a task, then you're not getting the benefits, right? And it's not fun, right? So you should, what my thing is like, sometimes if I'm just, I'm walking around doing something in my house, or like if I don't know, I just finished something at work and I am, happy that I did that thing. I'll literally just yell. This sounds so narcissistic, but I'll just yell out like, God, I'm a fucking champion. God, I'm so fucking cool. God, I'm so fucking awesome. So I like to do affirmations when I naturally feel that way, and then I verbalize it, right?
No, it's great, and it's so good to actually say those things to yourself, because we say, we're really comfortable saying, I'm such a fucking loser, I'm such a fucking asshole, blah blah blah, right? So kudos for you, because go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that there's guys that they swear by saying 100 affirmations 3 times a day or whatever it is, but the thing that I like to sort of say to myself is. And by the way, too, like at first you want to try everything and see how you feel, right? See how it affects you, because you don't quite know yet. But my thing is, I've reached a point in my life where, I'll ask myself, oh, do I want to say 100 affirmations a day? And then I'll have another thought that follows that, and I'll basically just say, well, hold on, like if I actually am a fucking champion, I don't need to say this shit because I believe it, right? So, I mean, if you whatever it takes to get that belief in your head, just do that, right? I used to say affirmations a whole lot, and maybe they helped me. I don't know. But, what I do know is if it makes you feel great and you feel better, then just do it. Like, honestly, that's a great guiding principle. If it starts to feel like a task, then
fake.
Don't do it.
Right.
Yeah. If it's like fake, you're just going through the motions, then don't do it. And I get that there's also discipline and things like that. And sometimes it's hard to meditate, but you still should. I get that. But in general, I think if it starts to feel like a task and it's not serving me, if it's not helping me grow, then I don't do it, know?
Yeah, that's it's important to you can cop out with that too. Of course.
Exactly. That's why I don't want to mention it, because a lot of newbies, they meditate once and they're like, oh, it doesn't feel good, so don't do it. Right?
Totally.
They worked out like once. Oh, it doesn't feel good, don't do it. So yeah.
It took me like 2 years to actually get into meditation. I'm sure listeners to this are laughing, because like I had guests on for many episodes. I'm just like, no, I can't do it. It's not for me. It's a waste of time sitting there. I could be getting so much shit done. And now I'm like the opposite. Like it's so important. But that was always my cop out. Like, it's too hard, blah, blah, blah. So if it's something go ahead.
Do you use binaural beats when you meditate?
I've done it twice recently, actually.
Which ones do you use?
I don't even know. It was a friend sent me, a recording to just play. So I know very little about it. I kind of know what they are, but explain.
Okay, cool. So I use something called brain.fm, and I've used all kinds of binaural beats from LifeFlow to whatever. Binaural beats are basically, it's where you wear headphones, right, or earbuds or whatever, and it plays a certain frequency in your right ear that's different from the frequency in your left ear. And it essentially helps your brain get into a certain state faster. So your brain has different frequencies, right? Sure. Alpha, beta, delta, gamma, right? Alpha is like when you're focused, you're relaxed, you're feeling great. Beta is, the alpha and beta and pickup. It's exactly what it sounds like, right? Beta is when you're anxious, you're nervous, etc. Delta and gamma are for like deep sleep. And when you play binaural beats, it helps you get into a certain state faster. So again, I use brain.fm, which I've been using for like a year and a half. It's great. It's like $5 a month or something. And there's one for focus that I listen to every day when I'm trying to get work done. But they have one for meditation. And so, maybe it helps get your brain into a delta or a gamma state faster. So it helps you wind down and stop thinking faster. So that's one thing that I really like doing is binaural beats. I don't know. You said you tried a couple. Yeah.
I was hypnotized way back in the day and played around a little bit with binaural beats, but I'm glad you explained it, because I never really understood their purpose. I knew you can get in different brainwave states, but I'm gonna definitely add that to my my practice and see how it goes. Because yeah,
Good stuff. Good stuff.
appreciate the tip there. You're full of it, man. You got lots of good stuff.
Thank you, man. Yeah, we're just cracking the tip of the iceberg too. So
Yeah. So tell me, you say you read a lot.
Yeah.
I read all the time, or listen to audiobooks more so these days, walking my dog, or doing
Yeah.
whatever. But give us some recent books that really recommend or change your life. Anything stand
So
out?
the number one book that I usually recommend is called Prometheus Rising. And this is like a super lesser known book. No one really knows about it. It expands upon the theories of Timothy Leary, who was a famous psychiatrist slash psychologist researcher at Harvard. And he's known for actually getting kicked out of Harvard for running experiments with LSD. And so he developed this 8 circuits of consciousness theory, which explains how your brain works, the different levels of consciousness in your brain. And like we were saying before, right, self-awareness, I think, is the pivotal aspect of changing your life. And without a doubt, I attribute so much of my success to this book, because it basically, to put it simply, it's a manual for how your brain works and how to get the most out of it. So, for example, there's something called the second circuit of consciousness, which is the anal emotional territorial circuit. And when you read this book, you'll start to recognize, oh, this is how my unconscious mind was programmed in this circuit. When you read, this book and they talk about the third circuit, the fourth circuit, you'll literally go through this and say, holy shit, that's me. That's what I'm doing. I was literally unconsciously programmed to have this framework to deal with life that I wasn't even aware of. So that's one book that's great, is Prometheus Rising. Another one is Letting Go by Dr. David Hawkins, Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins. Those are probably my main 3, I would say.
Very cool. I haven't heard of any of them, so I'll put those on the list.
What about you? What are your big 3?
What have I been reading? So I finished a book called Atomic Habits, which is kind of a mainstream book on habits, as you can guess.
Yeah.
But it came at a good time for me last year. I went through like this crazy state of just insano partying. Going on trips with Playboy models. Maybe Mark told you about some of this crazy crap I did. But yeah.
He did.
But
good times.
Yeah, it was fun. And I basically, like any sort of crazy, bucket list sort of experience when it came to women and sex and parties, I did it. And unfortunately, like the 9 months of raging took a toll on my just mental state, on my body. I just had all these bad habits. And I knew I needed to change that and get some more stability. But really reading that book, it's just basic stuff really in there. But it was talking about compounding habits and just the tiny gains you get from doing things over and over and over that you don't really see unless you kind of look at them through a microscope. And then, but as they compound, just like interest, the results are incredible. So that was a very good one that I read around August last year. I just read Sex at Dawn. Have you read that?
Yeah, I've heard of that. I bought it. I haven't read it though yet.
Very cool book on if you want to get your mind clear on what sort of relationship you want, whether it's monogamous or promiscuous, or not promiscuous, but what's the word? Polygamous.
Yeah.
It goes through basically like the evolution of humans. And how we've only been monogamous, or no one's really monogamous. Everyone's cheating, and most relationships are failing anyways. But we've only tried this monogamy thing for about 3,000 years, which is 10% of human existence. For 300,000 years, we were polygamous, living in small tribes, traveling around, hunter-gatherers, nomadic. And so it really explains like the nature behind why we're driven sexually the way we are. And it's, when you get that straight in your mind, you're like, oh, that's why I need all this strange, or that's why it didn't work out, in these sorts of relationships. And there's so much conflict around that with girls you're dating or relationships that have failed. When you can be really steady and really understand yourself, you can offer that to women. You can be like, listen, this is me. This is what I want in a relationship. It may not be the traditional monogamous relationship, you might have this fairy tale about, but try my thing out. I promise you'll like it better. And it's pretty cool to sort of, you can create whatever relationship you want. And women, if they believe your convictions, they'll happily try it out too.
Absolutely. So, have you ever read the book The Rational Male?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big fan of that.
That's a great one too.
I read that a couple years back. Big, gets a lot of guys into this kind of through the red pill sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's the gateway. Gateway book.
And the cool thing though so there was an interesting, after reading The Rational Male and hearing a lot of other people's takes on it, a lot of people will kind of slam it for being, too red pilly or
manipulative or very
too patriarchal, you could say. And reading Sex at Dawn, you see how kind of the patriarchy was created. It takes you through that history and how it's really kind of fucking over men a lot more than we think, and how matriarchal societies are actually much, much better. There's very few of them.
Yeah.
There's very, very few.
How do you define because when I think of patriarchy, I think of like these really extremist feminists that are just like patriarchy. Like how do you define it's a buzzword. How do you define patriarchy versus matriarchy?
Well,
is it values?
A patriarchal society is basically just one where men are kind of running the show, which is almost every society we have on Earth. As far as I'm just regurgitating stuff, so I could be wrong on some of this, but we live in a patriarchy. Like almost every society we know, every country is a patriarchy. Men are in power, men, and this happened because of farming and civilization. Because what happened basically 3,000 years ago is we stopped being nomads, hunter-gatherers, and we started farming. And once we started farming, we needed property. And property became valuable because you wanted the best crops and the best plot. And women became property because in order for them to essentially survive, they needed protection and they needed food. And the men were the ones really cultivating that. We're doing that sort of thing.
They have a farm, so
And plus the fact that that's only a small portion of it. The bigger portion of it was once you have property, you need to be able to pass that property down to your heirs.
Yeah.
And if you don't know who the mother of your child is, you always know who the mother is. If you don't know who the father is, right? If you don't know if you're the dad, now you're potentially passing your wealth down to someone else's kid.
Yeah.
So
that really created the morals, and then the monogamy came from that.
That really created the patriarchy because women became men were so obsessed with, is it my kid, right? That women basically became property, and it's super fucked
Interesting.
Up. And that just created all these crazy sort of, it's the world we live in now, obviously, but this was from farming and private property, and now there's still societies that they've done studies on in the book where it's a matriarchal society, and most societies I believe should be matriarchal because women are so much better at just overseeing social dynamics, keeping things in order. Guys, we like to go out and get shit done, and we like to compete, and we can, we cause wars, we cause all this violence, right?
Yeah.
And
so where's like a matriarchal? Because I'm trying to think of an example. Where's a matriarchal society? Because I can't really think of any.
You can't, because they're tiny remote islands that have been basically untouched by religion. They do a study on a few of these in the book. There's maybe 2 or 3 in the world where they're these tribes, and they're still living that basically hunter-gatherer nomadic style on an island, or maybe they have some farming there, but there's such a small population, you're not really worried about property. And everyone's raising the children together. It's a polygamous sort of community, and the women run the show. And there's no jealousy. There's no it's just from a man's perspective, if you wanted to have your sexual utopia, let the women run the show, because it's pretty fascinating. What
and that's all from Sex from Dawn?
Yeah.
Or Sex at Dawn?
Sex at Dawn, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, so check it out. It's some really thought-provoking stuff.
Yeah, I have it on my shelf. I've never read it though. It seems to me like a lot of it too is the value systems, right? So I think that there's a great book called The Way of Men, and it talks about the 4 fundamental things that men value, and there's strength, what the hell is it? Strength, courage, mastery, and honor. And I think that there's sort of stereotypical male patriarchal values, and then there's matriarchal values. And I think that it seems to me, at least, like in a matriarchal society, people would be a lot happier, right?
Yeah.
There would be, in general, or at least I should say, like the general happiness, right? In a patriarchal society, I think that the potential to be happier is, how do I say this? The range is a lot larger because in a patriarchal society, it's competition based, right?
Right.
So the top 1% will be happier, but like the bottom 99% isn't going to be that happy. And then again, too, though, we can get into topics of female hypergamy, right? And like how that plays out in a patriarchal versus matriarchal society. Because like if you look at places like Sweden, for example, or like different societies where women have all these, it's like more matriarchal, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's like weird aspects in the SMV and like different things like that. So it's a super interesting topic to explore. I know that I think it's like I guess it's a question of like, because with male competition there comes more I guess like, how do I say, progress, so to speak, or like there's more competition, so there's more things
building.
Advanced. Yeah, there's more building of things, of structures, of whatever. So I guess it's a question of like, do we want more building or more happiness? Because I would like both, right? And so the question is, how do we attain that?
Yeah, I really think we could have both by basically the patriarchy saying women will do this better. Let's let them kind of, run society, you could say, while we build stuff. And if you remove, I mean, this is such like a, far out sort of thing, unless you have a very small community that you could test this out and do it with. The way that from what I've studied, the way you design it would be you'd go back to our roots and you'd create a non sort of jealousy, no property. Everyone raises the kids together. Having
like a communal based thing.
Yeah, having polygamous relationships is encouraged. So what happens when you have polygamy and men are all getting laid? There's a lot of the violence is removed. A lot of the
of course, because I mean they've done studies on this too. So women have a calming effect on men, right? So because if you think of like, not to get too dark here, but like a lot of these dudes that shoot up schools and shit in the US, they're all incels. They're all incels.
Yeah.
Because they're not getting laid. So it's like if that can, if everyone's just having sex, like there's less male aggression, right? Totally.
Because you need an outlet for that. If you don't have an outlet for that, you see what fucking happens.
Yeah.
And also in communities where they've legalized prostitution, like most of those problems goes away.
Like Amsterdam or whatever.
Yeah, violence goes away. And when you're encouraging polygamy, when you're encouraging, free love, open love, it's just it removes so many issues in our society that just causes fucking problems.
So my question would be, I love the idea of free love, but my question would be, it seems like if there was free love, like most of the women would just bang like the top 10% of dudes and the other 90% wouldn't get laid. Is that how it plays out, or is that not how it plays out?
I think it would play out like that, but the key is having the right group of people and controlling the population, right? Because if you think back to when we were nomadic hunter-gatherers, like we're all in pretty good shape, right? You're IF and you're fucking working out every day. You're chasing animals, right?
Yeah.
So there's not this huge. There's not like the fucking, like I used to be, the fat dorky kid who just sat behind his computer and played golf all day. Like I'd be an in shape like member of society, and also you're encouraging sex from a young age. So that you don't have all this taboo and crazy shit around it. So there's less of this competition. And these communities still exist. There's one somewhere in Southeast Asia, and they actually encourage the older women to sleep with the younger men, which is interesting because typically,
how much older women and how much younger men?
Like guys in like teenagers, 12, 13, 15, whatever, sleeping with like 28, 35-year-olds. Because women.
Okay, I was thinking like 65-year-old women. I was like, I don't know about that.
No, it's still the
Yeah, the
you know,
MILFs.
Right, exactly. MILFs sleeping with younger guys and teaching them, how to last, how to be better lovers. Because when you have like a 16-year-old dude banging a 16-year-old girl, right?
They don't know anything.
They don't know anything, right? The guy's just, the girl's probably having a terrible time. It's, if she's a virgin, it hurts, whatever. And the guy's just like, been jerking off, so he's coming in 2 seconds, and it's,
What do you think about NoFap, by the way, on that point of coming in 2 seconds? Because like I'm a huge fan of NoFap. Like just guys, I think that stopping masturbating is another great habit that I recommend most guys do. Because what happens is when you stop masturbating, first of all, you have more motivation. Because when you jerk off, your dopamine receptors get super like blunted, and so you're not as motivated to do things in life. And so that's one great effect of not masturbating, not jerking off. Another is you're more attracted to real women, right? So like my thing is, why would I jerk off when I can just like develop a relationship with an actual girl? Yeah. So what are your thoughts on like that whole NoFap thing?
I'm a big fan of NoFap porn. Meaning
NoFap. So looking at porn but doing NoFap?
No. Fap is okay. Fap is okay, but no porn. Right?
Oh, okay.
If you want to lie down in bed and like, enjoy yourself and simulate like a real sort of sexual experience, because if you do that, you're using your imagination. And it's a more natural process, right? When you're looking at porn, it's just all, in your head.
It's all visual.
It's all visual. You're basically training yourself to come as fast as possible. You're training yourself to not get caught, right? Because you're doing something bad. You're training yourself to like be in this position, right? Like, it's so I think it's really unhealthy to jerk off to porn. Now, I think especially if you're not getting laid, you need some sort of outlet, but just do it the more natural way, I guess you could say. So
that's interesting because I actually do it the opposite, and I've tried kind of everything, but what I like to do is I'll use porn strategically. So like if I'm, for example, I don't jerk off ever. I only ever have sex with real girls, and what I'll do sometimes is like if I'm like really tired, it's like I don't want to do work. I'm like it's whatever. I'll like look at some porn. And I'll be like, damn, like that girl's really fucking hot. Now I'm motivated to get shit done because that's what I can get is, a fucking threesome with a million girls or whatever. So I do it the opposite way. But I think that the key is like do one or the other. Because it seems to me like the porn and the masturbation tied together is a guaranteed way to just like destroy your life because your dopamine receptors get fucked up. You're just not training yourself to get real girls. You have no motivation. It's just like, and it's so common nowadays too. Yeah. But it fucks you up.
I'm totally with you on if you can avoid fapping for sure. Like I haven't jerked off in, I don't know, maybe a year and a half, but I'm also sleeping with like
we have girls,
exactly. So it's easy to say, right? But if you don't have that, better than shooting up a school, right?
That's true.
Yeah. Tell us where listeners can find out more and get more info on you.
So you guys can check out my blog at masculinedevelopment.com. I've got hundreds of free articles there you can check out. Go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Jon Anthony. And there's no H in the John, by the way. If you want to learn more about the workout routine that I use, you can go to gettheperfectbody.com. And that also comes with a free bonus when you purchase that product called Alpha Supplements, where I talk about SARMs, where I get them, how I use them, etc. So masculinedevelopment.com is my blog. Gettheperfectbody.com is my workout routine and my supplements, all that stuff. And you can follow me on Twitter at masculinejon, Jon, no H. So yeah, thanks for having me on, man.
Very cool, fun. Man. Yeah, I'm gonna head over and get that perfect bod shit because you inspired me on the SARMs thing. Yeah, very awesome. So and I'll put the links below the episode so people can click on those. And
awesome,
cool, dude. Yeah, thanks so much for being on and great convo. And let's do it again soon.
Definitely, I'm down.
Thanks for listening. If you want more, go to innerconfidence.com and don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for the latest episodes.